Hello and welcome to another of our MMU Q-Step video tutorials. Today we're going to be looking at independent and dependent variables. In a piece of research, the thing that we're studying is usually the dependent variable, and the factors affecting it are the independent variables. So if we were looking at what affects an individual's happiness, happiness would be the dependent variable and the contributing factors would be the independent variables. The easiest way to think about it is that the independent variable is presumed to have an effect on the dependent variable. So let's look at a quick example. Imagine you're looking at how temperature affects ice cream sales. You might presume that when it's sunnier and warmer, we sell more ice cream, and when it's colder, you sell less ice cream. So what would be the independent variable and what would be the dependent variable in this example? Well, we're presuming that temperature is the one having the effect on ice cream sales. So temperature would be the independent variable and ice cream sales would be the dependent variable. One common issue is that people often mix up the independent variable and dependent variable, which isn't helped by them having ridiculously similar names. One way I like to remember which is to think of the Destiny's Child banger Independent Women Part 1. Destiny's Child were independent just like your variables. They weren't going to be affected by no man, and your independent variables aren't going to be affected by the dependent variable. They're the ones going to be doing the affecting. So let's play a bit of Destiny's Child as a treat. Whoops, we might need a bigger budget for that, I'm afraid. Whereas unlike Destiny's Child, your dependent variable really does depend on something else, your independent variables. So let's imagine we're studying the relationship between age and computer game usage. Well, we know that in general, the amount you play computer games depends on how old you are. Whereas your age doesn't depend on how much you play computer games. If you started playing lots of computer games, you wouldn't also age. At least let's hope not. So we can be pretty confident that here age would be the independent variable and how often you play computer games would be the dependent variable. However, there are cases where this is slightly more tricky, and this is especially true for social sciences, where the subject of your study are often very complicated humans. Let's imagine we're researching the link between loneliness and health. Which would be our independent variable and which would be our dependent variable? So does loneliness have an effect on health? Well, the answer is yes. There's loads of studies that show that loneliness contributes to depression, dementia, and even strokes and heart attacks. So it seems pretty clear which one our independent variable is, right? However, there's also lots of evidence to suggest that health affects loneliness. Having an underlying health condition can provide mental and physical barriers to socialising. So you can see that both variables could technically affect each other in both directions. How confusing. So how are we meant to know which is the independent variable and the dependent variable in these sort of situations? Well, this is where it's really important to look at your research question and your hypotheses. Which is your independent variable and which is your dependent variable is based entirely on what you want to study and how you framed your research questions and hypotheses. So if you want to look at how loneliness affects someone's health, then loneliness is your independent variable and health is your dependent variable. But if you want to look at how someone's health affects their loneliness, then health will be your independent variable and loneliness will be your dependent variable. So remember, the choice is in your hands, but your independent variable should have an effect on the dependent variable. So we'll see you next time, and thanks for watching another of our MMU Q-Step video tutorials.